and all of that. And he was a couple rooms down from the owner and the vice president. And, there was some days where that bell was going off a lot. Like, burn, burn, the error noise from computers and all that. And it would get frustrating. And he recognized that. He's like, look, I'm just trying to find these bugs, but I'm really causing a lot of stress for the owner and the vice president that's trying to fix all these bugs. So literally, they'd get up from their chair, run down the office where Vinny was, and say, okay, what now? And that's how it was going for about a week and a half when he started doing some of the deep dive. And what happened was, was talking with him. It's like, any way you could change that sound? Change it to something maybe a little bit more, I don't know, positive or fun. So he found a bicycle bell, the ding, 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 ding. So anytime there was an error, instead of hearing that noise, they'd hear a ding, ding. The whole office is laughing hysterically because we hear this bell. Same errors, same mistakes, but even the owners were giggling about it because it was a fun little bike bell. Ding, 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 ding. It changed the temperature of the room. It changed the morale because we'd hear the bell. Now, they'd still get mad because they heard the bell, but they were giggling because of the bell. It just made them laugh. So it's the only thing that they changed. But just those little subtle things sometimes can make a big difference. So little segue off the sleep thing, but it reminded me of that, and I wanted to share that with you. When you're not getting good sleep, your ability to remember things or even learn things gets diminished. That is not something you want to flirt with, especially if you're trying to learn something new or roll out a new product or service. You're going to need to learn how to use it. And if you're fatigued, you're not going to see those things and miss out on a lot of different things. And we talked about decision-making problems before. When you're not getting good sleep, your ability to make decisions get impacted. And you might make bad decisions or wrong decisions. Or maybe, I don't want to say illegal, but you might take some shortcuts that may not be in the best interest for you or your company or anything else. So it's definitely something you want to be on the lookout for. And then finally, this is on the relationship side of things. When you're not getting good sleep, you get emotional a little bit quicker. You get a little bit more short-fused. You might say something to your partner that after it's out of your mouth, you can't reel that back in. And that could be really, really problematic. That's why I always tell spouses, make sure before you buy the couch, you lay down on it at the furniture store. And because you may end up sleeping on it one night because you mouthed off to your partner and you shouldn't have. If in the best case scenario, if they allow you to stay in the house, you might be outside, sleeping in the doghouse, and the dog's not going to move over for you. So be careful. But again, when you're not getting good sleep, you make rash decisions. You say things that you don't really mean, but they come out of your mouth anyway. So it's kind of hard to reel them back in. Your relationships get impacted too. Not just your personal relationships, but work relationships. When you have that collegial relationship with work, you start getting short-fused and start mouthing off or yelling at people, all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I'm not talking with that jerk anymore. You might need that person to help you with the project, and guess what? They're going to quiet quit on you. They're not going to help out. They're going to give you the bare minimum, and that's going to impact your deliverable and what you do. So sleep is so critically important, and I'll share a quick story about a couple that I know that live in the condo building that I live in. A few months ago, I was downstairs and was waiting for the elevator, and the husband of this couple, came around the corner, and he'd just come back from the mall that I had mentioned to you before, and he had 2 boxes, and in these boxes were brand new pillows. And I looked, I'm like, oh, got some new pillows. He said, yeah, these pillows cost $250 each. $500, 2 pillows. I asked him, all right, I give. What's in them? Gold? Crypto? Illegal drugs? What the heck's in there? Now, with the illegal drugs, kind of funny because his spouse works for the police force, so I knew it wasn't that. he laughed. He said, no, these are just amazing pillows, and we find that these pillows are amazing, and we get an incredible amount of sleep. Both of these people work in very, very stressful jobs. Again, one works for the police force. I forget what role he works in, but I know it's an extremely stressful role. If you see these people, though, out and about at the mall or a local restaurant or just outside walking their dog or whatnot, you'd never know that they work in a stressful world. And the reason why is they get some amazing sleep. If you drop $500 on 2 pillows, I would certainly hope so. But it brings home a point where I'm guessing, and it's the question I ask a lot when I'm giving talks or in person, I'll ask people, okay, any of you ever spent $500 total in your entire life on pillows, much less 2? Guessing the answer is no. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and buy $200 or $500 pillows. I am suggesting that you do spend a little bit more money than maybe you're used to on your bedding. Get a pillow that's right for you, that'll help you have a fighting chance to get a great night of sleep. Same thing with your bedding, your mattress. Yes, I know those big screen televisions are amazing. Nothing would look better than the 80-inch screen in your living room. I get it. But you know what? Maybe buy the 65-inch screen and save the money and go buy yourself a really decent mattress where you will get a great night's sleep. Why is it important? Well, I just went through a list. Your ability to do anything in life is impacted by your sleep. Where do you spend the most consecutive hours of your day in one spot? Besides your couch or wherever you watch television, it's probably your bed. So invest the money, get as much as you can, getting the best mattress, the best sheets, the bedding, pillows, all blankets, all of that stuff. You will get better sleep. You get better sleep, guess what? You're going to be able to navigate through stressful situations better. I'm not saying stress won't be there. Well, it will be. But your ability to recognize them and be able to be agile and move around and do whatever you need to do to fight off the stress so it doesn't become prolonged goes a long way if you get a really good night's sleep. So it's really important for you to focus on sleep. If there's anything you take away from this, if you can improve your sleep, that's going to help you an absolute ton going down the road. Okay, resilience time. How do you build resilience? Getting good sleep is one thing, so we know about that. The pandemic in these last few years has really impacted our ability to be resilient. Every time we get up, we get knocked down again. We think we're okay, pandemic's over. Okay, inflation, everything costs more. Oh, supply chain issues. We can't get the things that you normally can get. Okay, there's combat and war going on in the Ukraine. If you're impacted by that, pretty stressful. I know a lot of people in both of those countries, and then, of course, obviously in Europe and all around the world is being impacted by that. So stressful. There's concern. There's worries about what could come about. Fuel costs, shortages, all these things, one thing after another. If you're in the U.S., then there's elections coming up in less than a month or about a month. That's stressful for people, and it's really problematic. And it just seems like no matter where we turn, we're getting hit, and we're like, and you get fatigued from that. So, how do you build resilience? If you had it, you may have lost it over these last few years. So, how do you build it back? One, and this is a big challenge for a lot of people, and there's a reason why. One of the things I do, I work with cognitive behavioral therapy and neuro-linguistic programming. That is a mouthful of a word. That's why we call it NLP, because linguistic is okay, but then you throw a neuro before it. It's like, wow, that's a lot of syllables. But anyway, the reason why I do some work in that area is when I was dealing with people that are burning out or burned out, there was a lot of common elements that were coming into play when it came down to their behaviors, their thought patterns, their beliefs, why they feel things are important, the programming that they gave themselves or the programming that they had when they were younger. And you should do this because society tells you to do this. Okay, does that make sense for you today? Or something different? But people still carry on those beliefs, patterns, habits that they learned in their youth from their parents or a mentor or something like that isn't serving them. And it's causing them stress because they're going against the grain of what they really want to do in life. So that adds extreme stress. Extreme prolonged stress turns into burnout. So, it's one of those things where you have to be aware of these things. And unfortunately, so many of us lack self-awareness of who we are. Why is this important to me? We don't ask that deeper question. You see something on the news, and it doesn't matter what flavor you watch. It's all negative. I don't care what channel you watch. It's all negative. And it's negative because that brings eyeballs, and eyeballs get advertising dollars, and that's how those broadcasters and all of that are getting paid, because the ads of the companies that are paying that, because they want you hooked. They want you to watch longer so you see more ads and all of that. I'm not trying to be rude to those people. That's a job. That's their job. That's what they do in life. But for me, I'd much rather consume my news in a way that I can get the information that I need and get out and not just live there and watch 12 hours of news every day like my mom and dad used to do. I'd go to visit their house and the news would be on as soon as it was on, and it was just on. I'm like, I could literally feel my IQ drop. Yeah, it was like, come on, there's other shows. Put on an old sitcom. I mean, that's not going to make you any smarter, but at least you're going to laugh at a few things. But becoming self-aware, knowing who you are, and this goes again, this might be where a therapist can help you if you're not sure how to do this work, is to get better understanding of why things are important to you. But approach it from a level of curiosity, please. Don't beat yourself up. Don't get mad at yourself for decisions that you made in the past. You can change the world, but you cannot change the past. The past is done. It's over with. How you look at the past can change. But you have to approach life in yourself, especially when you're looking within. Look at it from a level of curiosity, not of hate or anger. Oh, I was stupid to do that. Quit saying that to yourself. You weren't stupid. In many cases, in most cases, you made the best decision you could at that time based on whatever that particular situation was. You had the tools available at that time to be able to make that decision. Good, bad, indifferent. But don't beat yourself over it. You're just trying to do the best you can. That's what we're all trying to do. So you got to go easy on yourself, but become more self-aware. Why do things make you happy? Why do things make you sad? Why do things upset you? Why do things that may upset your neighbor don't bother you at all? Figure those things out, because when you have that self-awareness, it can help you kind of create some boundaries around when you do things and when you don't. And it gives you that self-confidence to say, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do it this way because this is better for me. Because when there's a better version of you, guess what? Everything you do becomes better. Food tastes better. Your relationships are better. You feel better. You sleep better. The chaos of the world doesn't get you. Excuse me. Pardon me. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to cough in your ear. But I covered up, sort of. Thankfully, I'm not wearing a mask, but you get anything through the microphone. At least I'm hoping not, anyway. That's new AI that'll come years down the road. Anyway, next up, self-care. And I'm going kind of opposite here, but all these things are connected. When you hear self-care, are you thinking yoga or meditation or moments of Zen? If that's your definition of self-care, awesome. But guess what? Watching Netflix or Disney Plus or Hulu or Paramount Plus or whatever streaming service you have and watching your favorite show, that's self-care. You're doing something you enjoy doing. going for a ride on your motorcycle if you have one, or on your bike, or going to the movies, or going to have coffee or tea with your best friend, or golfing or swimming or hiking, or writing a book or reading a book, or filling out a crossword puzzle, or staring at trees for 2 minutes, or anything, going out to the club, making dinner, cooking, baking, cleaning. Not many people click that one, but I know there are people that love that and they find it therapeutic, so I'm not judging. That's all self-care. Why? Because you're doing something that you enjoy doing. Brings you joy and fulfillment. And when you're stressed and burned out and you're lacking resilience, those things get cut out because I don't have time. Okay, let's go into screen time on your iBanking and see how many hours a day you're spending on TikTok. You've got time. It's just how you spend it. And part of that self-awareness is not knowing how much time you spend on things. We kind of go through life aimlessly sometimes. And when we're fatigued and wiped out, the last thing we want to think about is keeping track of how we spend our time. Well, that's just another thing I got to do. My first career, and I alluded to it earlier, was in public accounting. So I worked at a CPA firm during tax season. In the U.S., April 16th still feels like a wonderful day to me, even though I haven't been in that field for years. It's still one of those days of, this feels so good. Because tax season is long hours, lots of tax returns, and people handing you a shoebox or a paper bag or plastic bag full of receipts and say, here, make it painless, please. And that's a lot of work to sort through all of that. But at the end of the day, you got to take care of yourself, okay? You have to just figure out what makes you tick. Get a better understanding of you. One of the things that I do is I keep a food journal. And you can use a phone app for that, even though I told you don't use your phone so much. Yeah, use the app. You can use paper too, but it's a lot easier on the app because in that way you can see patterns and trends and things like that, because what you eat and what you consume impacts your energy levels. And if your energy levels are fluctuating, then so is your days. You kind of want to find that happy medium where you're not fluctuating as much. And when you do that, then you get into a rhythm. You start feeling better because your body's not trying to adjust to these rapid swings. So, getting self-care into your life, even if you're working a ton of hours, is still critically important. Even though you may not be able to spend an hour having coffee with your best friend, could you do it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour instead? Again, look at your screen time. Maybe cut out 20 minutes of TikTok and add that to once a week going to have coffee with your friend, or just going outside for a walk. Whatever makes you happy and brings you joy and fulfillment, continue to do those things. Even if you're in a busy season through work, continue to do those things. Relationships, boy, did those take a ding over the last couple of years. We were told we couldn't see people. Now, most of us still did to a certain extent. We took precautions. Some we may not have been able to. I have family in Michigan, and I didn't see them between March of 2020 until December of last year. I was on the phone with them a lot, did FaceTime and whatnot, but didn't get to physically see my mom and my brother for almost 2 years, face to face. And there's a lot of people that have been in that situation. There may still be situations where you may not have seen people over these last couple of years, and now you're starting to. So rekindling those relationships after what's happened has been really, really problematic. And as we've discovered, when we were all told to stay away from each other, we realized that as humans, we're supposed to interact. Zoom is great. You can connect with people across the planet. I have. I talk to people and present and do speaking engagements virtually. I did a ton of them during the pandemic, and doing this now through technology. I'm not where you are. I'm in a room in my condo delivering this talk. But I could easily be in a conference somewhere, but the technology is there, but it's still different. And with relationships, that face-to-face is so critically important. So that's why it's good to get out, especially if you're working remotely all the time. Do your best to get out, even if it means going across the street and buying a cup of coffee, even though you make your coffee at home or tea, whatever. Occasionally, go out there just so you see other human beings, so you're not just sequestered to a room all day. You need that. Even if you're introverted, you still need that. It's really important. Mindfulness, again, that is something that a lot of people think about when they are going through trying to figure out, how do I build resilience? There's plenty of apps, there's plenty of YouTube videos to show you how to become mindful. I'm not suggesting that you take up yoga or can meditate. A lot of people really say, I can't quiet down enough to meditate. There's I don't know if it was Buddha or Gandhi, I forget who made the quote. It's like, if you can't take, I'm paraphrasing this, if you can't meditate for 10 minutes, then you need to meditate for an hour. And there's a lot to be said about that. If you're constantly on the go, and you can't carve out an hour of 24 to relax and just kind of unwind and let your mind do things, and it's fine. Your mind's going to wander. That's what our brains do. They're an unruly bunch of neurons and goop and everything that's inside our head. Thankfully, breathing is on autopilot, because I think many of us would probably forget to breathe. There's a lot to be said about breath work too, and we're not going to dive into that today, but that's some important work too. Learning how to properly breathe is a great stress reliever as well, but figuring out how to meditate in a way that works for you, where you can kind of ground yourself a bit, like taking a deep breath and just, and you feel it in your shoulders, the stress and the pressure of your shoulders kind of eases up a little bit. So, again, plenty of apps and videos on that, or you can work with your healthcare provider or a therapist. They can guide you through some things. Because if you're taking care of your physical body and addressing your mental aspect of your body, you're going to feel better and you're going to be stronger. If you're stronger and you feel better, guess what? You're going to have more resilience. You're going to be able to withstand these things that continue to pop up in our lives. They're not going away. They're going to continue being here. There's going to be ups and downs of life. History has dictated that. But becoming more resilient to be able to navigate around them or dodge the punches, or if you get punched, at least you can kind of minimize the damage a little bit, because they don't feel good. I know that for a fact. And then finally, purpose. We see a lot of people, especially when it comes to work, they want their work to be impactful, to have meaning. They want their contribution to be recognized, that I'm doing a great job. Even if you're underpaid, you still want that acknowledgement, even though that organization may not be able to pay you for whatever reason, the salary that you deserve or what the market indicates you should be getting. But at least getting an acknowledgement that you're doing an amazing job is really, really important. Okay? So find your purpose. And that goes back to the self-awareness of who you are, what's important to you. And guess what? That can change. It's your life. You do what you want. And you can change your mind and do something different. It's your life. It's nobody else's. It's yours. Yes, there's things that can be impacted. If you're a provider, parent, spouse, whatnot, decisions you make may have an impact on others. But ultimately, you have to do what's right for you first. Is that being selfish? Absolutely. You need to be. You have to take care of you first. No one else can. Who do you spend the most time with in your life? You. Now, you may be married and married to somebody for decades. Well, they weren't your partner the day you were born. Maybe you met them really early in life and they were your childhood friend first and then became married and you spent your entire life together. Awesome. That's great. But they haven't always been there. You're always with you. So figure out what motivates you. Do the exercise. Like what's important to me, what's not. And we'll have an exercise in the next session you can do that can kind of help flush this out a little bit. I think you'll find it helpful. So, okay, we got a few more minutes before our next break, but I want to go through a few more things before we get to some stuff here. Oops. And there's next. You can stop burnout before you think you can. A lot of people that burn out think that I'm going to be burned out forever. I'm never going to not be burned out again. That's not true. You can actually stop burnout in its tracks. You can really, really, really get some good things in your life. And I've seen some questions come in. I'll get to those in a moment, so don't worry, I won't forget them. But stopping burnout is really important. Figuring out why you burned out, that's the deeper work. That takes more time. That's where the self-inspection and becoming aware of who you are and why things are important, that work helps you flush out why you burned out. One of the things I say a lot, and some people get mad at me at first when they first hear it, is burnout is a choice. Now, no one on this planet says, you know what I'm going to do for 2023? I'm going to burn out. No one wants to put that on their New Year's resolution list. If they do, they definitely need a therapist. But no one intentionally says, I'm going to burn out. But the choices we make in our lives and the decisions we make and the situations we find ourselves in and put ourselves in can create the environment where we will burn out. So burnout is a choice, but it's a series of choices and decisions you've made in your life that create that. That's where the deeper work is, to figure out, okay, how did I get to this point? What do I need to adjust so I don't do that again? Getting restful sleep, we've already talked about that. Go buy the nice pillow. You don't have to drop $250 on a pillow, but just find a good pillow. I know the big box stores, they're constantly having pillows on sale. And swap out your pillow every, I don't know what the stats say, but for me, I swap mine out about every 6 months, or unless it starts losing shape for some reason, then I'll buy a new one. But find the pillow that works for you. Same thing with your bedding. I know it's statistically impossible that you and your partner, if you sleep with somebody, are going to agree on the room temperature. That's just statistically impossible. It's not going to happen. So they're going to want the temperature a couple degrees different than you. Wait till they go to sleep, change it. Now, guess what? They're going to wait till you fall asleep and change it back. Or if you have one of those digital ones on your phone, they're just going to play it and set it back to what it's supposed to be. It's a cat and mouse game. It's cute. Keeps relationships lively, to say the least. I know my wife and I do not agree on the temperature, but we don't have one of those programmable thermostats yet, and I'm hoping that we don't. So don't tell anybody, as I'm telling hundreds of people. Eating healthier. I'm not going to tell you to not eat fast food, but I am going to suggest, if you can, find, and there's a lot of places online you can do this, but you may have to get a referral from a medical professional on this, but get a food intolerance test done if you can. And I was tested last year on over 250 types of foods. Now, that's a lot of foods. So I was tested on them to see if I have an intolerance or an outright allergy. And I got the report back, and I was surprised on the number of foods that were on the red page, or the page that said, yeah, you have an intolerance to these foods. And they were scored differently, so some foods were worse than others. One of them that I saw in there that I was shocked about was, I have a food intolerance to eggs. My company name is Breakfast Leadership. My logo is an egg. So I'm allergic to my logo? Great. Well, I'm not going to change my logo or change my company name, but that's the irony of ironies. And of course, I also have a potato allergy. Yes, I'm allergic to potatoes. I'm Irish descent, and I'm allergic to potatoes. What kind of joke is that? But here I am. But I knew of that one. But seeing this report helped me adjust my diet in such a way where the foods that I had high intolerance to, I eliminated from my diet or significantly reduced them. And what that does is my digestive system then is getting foods that my body naturally can process easily, which means I get better sleep, because when you're sleeping, your body digestive system tends to work. You know this if you have acid reflux, because that tends to happen at night when you're sleeping. So if you're eating foods that doesn't cause acid reflux as much, guess what? You're going to sleep and your body's going to break down the foods, repair itself and all of that, and you're going to get better sleep, tying in with the $250 pillows too. But the test isn't cheap, or at least it wasn't for me. Depending on what region you're in, it may be affordable. You might be able to get it paid for by your insurance. I don't know, but it's something that I found helpful, because getting good sleep and having good digestive system working and all that stuff goes a long way for helping you get that good sleep. We've already talked about self-care. We talked about prioritizing your self-care first and taking care of you first. And an exercise we're going to do after the break, you got to make sure you're doing at least a couple things every week that you enjoy doing in life. Because again, when you're burned out and stressed and you're fatigued and you're not motivated to do anything, those things that you normally enjoy doing, you don't do. Because you're too tired or you're too busy. Because you're spending 6 hours on TikTok. Not judging, just stating facts. So it's important. Your life goals are really important too. If you don't know what your life goals are, you need to write them down. And I mean literally write them down. Don't type them up on the computer. Grab a piece of paper, or if you have you can use technology if you want. If you have an iPad or one of those tablets that take notes. I got one recently that it still boggles my mind. I'm writing on this screen. It feels like I'm writing on paper, but I'm actually writing on a screen. It's the craziest thing. But it's been a game changer for me, because it allows me to digitalize my notes instead of using this little scrap pad thing, which I'm still kind of break from. But it's a habit. It takes time. But I find it's easier, because in that way I can take those notes and put them in my system that I use for following up or information or whatnot. And so it's been a real big game changer for me. But writing down your life goals is important, and because it gets you thinking, going back to that self-awareness thing. What do you want to do in 2023? Or what would you like to do? What would you like to do professionally? Would you like to learn a new skill? Would you like to learn how to program whatever? Or would you like to learn how to do this? Or you're lousy at Excel and you want to learn how to use pivot tables or all that fun stuff? I wish you luck, but no, seriously, and O'Reilly has a ton of courses and things like that. Sign up for them. Learn something different. You'll grow. You know what? It might even give you an opportunity to do something different in your career. Be curious. Take on some new lessons, and in your personal life as well. Learn new hobbies. Learn how to do things. Learn how to play guitar or drums. Your neighbors will love you at 3 o'clock in the morning if you're playing drums. Just a pro tip on that. Unless you're above a club, then they won't hear you because the club's still playing. But anyway, it's important for you to do things in life and write down your life goals. Getting active is important too. This pandemic, when a lot of us were sequestered to our rooms, we weren't as active. Even if you didn't go to the gym before the pandemic, you still got up, you went into work, you walk around the office, and you walked to your lunch break or walked to go get coffee across the street. You were moving. Well, for many of us during the pandemic, our commute was from the bedroom to the couch to the kitchen to the bathroom, back to the kitchen, back to the couch, back to the kitchen, back to the bathroom, and then bedtime. Some of us didn't go outside very much. So they tell us 10,000 steps a day. Some of us probably didn't get 2,000 steps a day. Well, that's going to take a toll on your physical body. Your clothes, your work clothes, may not fit. That's the thing I told people before they started going back to the office. Is like, you might want to try on your work attire if you've been working in T-shirt and sweat for the last 2 years, because my hunch is those slacks or that blouse or that dress or that skirt may not fit. And you're going to want to figure that out before Monday morning when you go to the office, because I'm guessing the dress code hasn't been changed for T-shirts and sweats. Just saying. If it was, you work for a cool company. And then finally, you got to establish boundaries. And you're like, what in the world are you talking about, Michael? We got to have some boundaries. And then on the slides, there's a next slide, but I'm going to go to break time, and then after the break, we'll go into that. But that'll come up in a minute. But I want to talk about boundaries before we take another break. Mental and emotional, I'm going to couple this together. We know that the last couple of years have been very, very emotional. It's attacked our mental well-being. The changes in this world, the pandemic, inflation, recession, war, supply chain issues, death of loved ones, work, quiet quitting, great resignation, you name it. That's a lot that was thrown at us. And you have to do your best to protect your mental well-being. I alluded to it before about watching the news hour after hour. You got to have boundaries around how much information you're consuming, especially negative. Because if you're consuming negative information, that's like consuming foods that you have an intolerance to. You keep consuming it, your body's going to reject it. You're going to toss and turn. You're not going to sleep well. We know what happens if you don't get good sleep. It impacts everything in your life. Having that self-awareness of what's important for you and what you allow and what you won't allow will go a long way to help you build up that resilience. Now, spoiler alert, when you start establishing boundaries in your life, you might tick some people off because they've been used to having their way with you. And when you say no more, that might be a challenging situation. And those might be loved ones. I'm not just talking about work. I'm talking about loved ones. So it's a difficult thing to approach, but for your own personal well-being, it's something you definitely have to focus on. Physical boundaries, we know about those. Masks, keep 6 feet apart or 2 meters, depending on what part of the world you're in. I split my time between San Diego, California, and Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And in Canada, during the early days of the pandemic, instead of 6 feet, they used the metric system there. So they'd say keep 2 meters apart, but they would use a hockey stick because a hockey stick is approximately 2 meters long. So it's like keep a hockey stick apart from each other. And all I could think about is as kids, if you have a hockey stick, if you're hitting somebody with it, you're not just poking them, you're probably swinging at it too, which is how you end up in the penalty box and why you don't get called up for the team next year, because you're too mean with people. Not that I know anything about that. I'm not typically one that would do that, but from time to time. Material and financial. And we're going to go on break after this. In my opinion, it's not fact, but in my opinion, I think financial stress is probably the worst stress there is. And the reason being is when you don't have enough money to pay your bills, or you're short this month, or you're using credit cards to cover things because the cost of things are so high, that's really stressful. Because even though we despise mostly paying bills, we do love the ability that we can pay bills. And when we can't, that is very stressful. I like saying, don't spend more than you make. That's really hard right now for a lot of people. And people are making decisions on, do I have to get a second job? They're already working so many hours. Getting another job in order to cover their bills and make ends meet. It breaks my heart to see that for people. It's really difficult out there, I know. And when I share my burnout journey with you, you'll kind of know why I know what that's like. But do your best to, if you can, live within your means. And we saw a lot of people do that. A lot of people downsized during the pandemic. A lot of people moved out into the suburbs away from the cities for more affordable or bigger properties for them because they didn't want to be in that rat race anymore like they were. So really, really important for us to focus on that. So if you don't have boundaries in your life, dominoes are going to fall. And after the break, we're going to talk about my burnout journey and all of that. But we're going to take a break first, because then after the break, I'll share my story. Then we'll go into an exercise, and then we'll wrap everything up in a nice little bow and have time for Q&A and all of that. So I know some questions came in while we did this talk. So it's 57 after the hour. So why don't we're going to do basically a 8-minute break. So we'll come back at 5 minutes after the hour, and that should give us enough time for me to wrap up some things and make sure we have time for Q&A. So I will see you back at 05, depending on what time zone you're in, unless you're in, I think it's Newfoundland, that's a half hour. So 5 or 35.